Good evening. This is Inside News, where we examine the stories shaping our world, with attention to events that receive insufficient coverage in mainstream channels. I am Serena, and this is Friday, October 10th, 2025. Africa confronts resource governance failures alongside promising economic partnerships. The European Union pledged €11.5 billion in investments to South Africa on October 10, 2025, targeting green energy transitions and hydrogen infrastructure, as the country prepares for its G20 presidency beginning December 2024. The commitment involves EU officials and South African government representatives, aiming to accelerate renewable energy projects and strengthen economic ties between the continents. South Africa's rand slipped slightly to 18.50 against the US dollar as commodity prices paused their rally, with traders attributing the movement to profit-taking amid ongoing market volatility. In Rwanda, Inyange Industries launched a new production facility in Kigali on October 10th, expanding capacity for dairy and beverage products through partnerships with local farmers and international investors, creating over 500 jobs and supporting the country's Vision 2050 economic transformation agenda. South African authorities initiated an investigation on October 10th into possible use of locally manufactured parts in Russian drones deployed in Ukraine, examining compliance with international sanctions and export controls. The probe, led by Defense and Trade Ministries, involves manufacturers and intelligence agencies, with potential implications for diplomatic relations with Russia and Ukraine. In an underreported development, mining companies in the Democratic Republic of Congo underreported $16.8 billion in revenue from 2018 to 2023, according to a state audit released October 10, 2025. Exposing opaque accounting practices and weak enforcement that have cost development funding. Natural disasters and security tensions dominated Asia on October 10th. A powerful 7.4 magnitude earthquake struck off the southern Philippines, triggering tsunami warnings and resulting in at least 3 confirmed deaths on Mindanao Island. The quake, centered offshore, was followed by a 6.7 magnitude aftershock, prompting evacuations in coastal areas with infrastructure damage estimated in millions. Taiwan unveiled its T-Dome air defense system on October 10th, designed to counter threats from China, involving advanced radar and missile technologies developed with domestic and international partners. President Lai Ching-te and Defense Ministry officials presented the system as enhancing rapid response capabilities amid escalating cross-strait tensions. The 78th WHO Regional Committee for Southeast Asia commenced in Colombo on October 10th, focusing on pandemic preparedness and universal health coverage, with representatives from 11 member states committing to increase funding by 20%. Indonesia reported its highest trade surplus, reaching approximately $3.5 billion, driven by manufactured goods exports in electronics and textiles. South Korea's markets rebounded on October 10th, with Samsung Electronics nearing an all-time high stock price following restored online trading systems after a brief outage, reflecting broader economic stability, with GDP growth projections at 2.5%. An underreported issue involves honor killings in Pakistan, with a case reported on October 10th involving a 17-year-old victim in a rural area, highlighting ongoing challenges for women's rights in South Asia. Chinese automakers continued rapid market penetration in Southeast Asia, particularly in Thailand and Indonesia, through subsidies and local assembly, challenging Japanese dominance and accelerating regional electrification. European security and economic policy marked October 10th. NATO announced the start of its annual nuclear exercise, Steadfast Noon, involving allied forces across Europe to enhance deterrence capabilities amid rising geopolitical tensions. The drills, led by NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, focus on simulated scenarios without live weapons, reinforcing alliance unity while maintaining tensions with Russia. The EU Council approved conclusions on using tax incentives to support clean technologies, aiming to accelerate the green transition with measures targeting industries across all 27 member states, projected to mobilize billions in private funding and reduce carbon emissions by 10% in key sectors. The European Parliament called for more effective sanctions on Russia and deeper defense cooperation with Ukraine on October 10th, with resolutions passed emphasizing enforcement of existing measures and new arms supplies. Parliament President Roberta Metsola and Ukrainian officials pressed for heightened pressure on Moscow amid the ongoing war. The EU launched 3 initiatives worth €6.6 million to bolster independent media in Ukraine, focusing on journalism training and counter-disinformation efforts in war-affected regions, aiming to reach over 1,000 journalists. In an underreported development, the EU scrapped a vote on chat control legislation on October 10th, which would have mandated tech firms to break encryption for child protection, amid privacy concerns from advocates. The EU chief prosecutor urged fighting tax fraud gangs, estimating €50 billion in annual losses and calling for cross-border enforcement to recover revenues and reduce organized crime influence. A ceasefire deal in Gaza was approved on October 10, 2025, but airstrikes continued amid implementation delays, involving Israel, Hamas, and U.S. mediators. The agreement, ratified by regional stakeholders, aims to halt hostilities after months of conflict, with humanitarian aid corridors planned. U.S. immigration reform updates highlighted new policies addressing border security and pathways for migrants on October 10th, with data showing a 15% increase in applications under revised programs led by congressional leaders and advocacy groups. New York Attorney General Letitia James faced scrutiny in an indictment case on October 10th, related to ongoing investigations into financial practices. A worker shortage in key U.S. sectors was reported, with industries like healthcare and manufacturing facing deficits of over 500,000 positions, according to labor statistics. Driven by demographic shifts and post-pandemic recovery, protests over fuel price hikes in Ecuador escalated on October 10th, leading to nationwide disruptions as indigenous groups and unions clashed with government forces in Quito over subsidy removals justified by fiscal deficits. Underreported issues include cargo theft surging in the U.S. trucking industry, with online scams rising 1,500% since the pandemic, according to industry associations urging legislative action. CEOs warned of tariff threats to U.S. supply chains in letters to potential administrations, highlighting disruptions from proposed policies. Super Rugby secured a multi-million-dollar title sponsorship with cryptocurrency exchange Swyftx on October 10th, 2025, covering men's and women's competitions in Australia and New Zealand. The partnership, involving Rugby Australia executives, aims to expand fan engagement through digital platforms and could boost revenue by 25%. New Caledonia's national football team achieved a 2-0 victory over Gibraltar on October 10th in a friendly match, traveling 18,000 kilometers as preparation for World Cup qualifiers, improving their FIFA ranking. Australia's communications minister summoned telecommunications executives on October 10th to address 000 emergency outages affecting millions after recent network failures linked to infrastructure problems. The incidents prompted reviews by regulatory bodies with immediate implications for enhanced infrastructure resilience and public safety. Royal Caribbean announced a 2-story casino on its Legend of the Seas ship, set for 2026 operations in Oceania routes, designed with advanced gaming technology, targeting regional tourists from Australia and New Zealand. Underreported developments include rising global scams in Oceania, with over half of adults encountering fraud, particularly shopping and investment schemes, according to surveys. The maritime industry called for regulations on seafarer mental health on October 10th, ahead of World Mental Health Day, led by the CAND in Australia. Pacific nations advocated for a universal shipping carbon levy for equitable decarbonization at regional forums. The stories we choose to cover shape the world we understand. When crises affecting tens of millions receive fraction of the attention given to events affecting far fewer, we create information ecosystems that fail fundamental tests of proportion and consequence. Journalism must prioritize impact over spectacle, suffering over convenience of coverage. With good journeys to all, good night.